Hello and a warm collisions YYC. Welcome to my returning guest from way back in June 2021, Mr. John Hetherington. How you doing, John?
I'm doing awesome. I still can't believe that it's been not nearly 4 years since we last chatted. It feels like just the other day.
The time warp that was 2020 to, I don't know, yesterday or the other day, that kind of thing. It is... I just kind of live in this pre and post COVID era, but you and I were in the early days of COVID. Who knows what phase? Maybe we were in one of those phases where we thought it was done in June, but it was just a trick. It wasn't actually done.
I know. It's been a whole new world. I mean, you think back on COVID now and you think what we went through, and it was tough for a lot of people and devastating for a lot of people, but it just the lineups at the grocery store were just insane and what we went through. I can't imagine ever doing that again.
I hope it doesn't happen again because I think people would react. Anyways, that's a whole other podcast for another day. I think there would be the we're all in it together that eroded quite quickly. I don't think we'd even be there for a minute now. I think it would get very fiery and very controversial very quickly.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
But I'm not a social scientist, so I won't comment any further on that. John, I remember, and we chatted about it offline, having a fabulous conversation, like clarification, simplification, some structures, some models of how to think about technology, innovation, which I want to get into, but I also want to touch on, I want to be respectful of your journey. You've really niched down and really focused in your business since we chatted last. And I love, as a marketer, the ability to be precise, the ability to know who your audience is, and the ability to speak to them. So why don't you give us a quick little elevator of kind of what you're working on? And, what's John up to now 4 years later?
Yeah, for sure. So we've gone through quite a journey, actually. It's interesting. It was a journey that's probably started 20 years ago when we moved from the UK to Canada, and the whole coming to a new country and establishing a business and new relationships and everything else, which was uncomfortable and difficult and scary. But my wife and I have always found the biggest development and growth is when you make a big change in your life. And sometimes you have to push that change. So
sometimes, John.
Yes, exactly.
Touche.
Sometimes it's imposed on you. Sometimes it's a choice. And we were fortunate enough and blessed to be able to make the choice of leaving the country. And big change. Love coming to Canada. And coming into COVID, that was a whole change that everyone went through globally. And then coming out of COVID, we found that we were having a lot of success with the business. It was growing, but we weren't getting consistent results. It was kind of stop-start, wasn't consistently bringing the growth we were expecting. So working with coaches, I'm a big fan of investing in myself and my team, because building your team will build your company. And as a result of that, investing in coaches to advise me, advise my team, we really did niche down. So we're now 100% focused on closing the month-end books for CFOs, controllers of financial services companies, closing the books twice as fast within 3 months using AI and automation.
I love how precise that is. And I also appreciate how much you've worked on that and refined that to get it there. When something sounds so simple, it sounds natural. Rarely did that just wake up that way. Who would be, is it size, scale? Where, of course, I want to dig a little bit deeper. When you talk about that, is that somebody replacing a bookkeeper, or is this a little bit more sophisticated? You've got a larger organization, a relatively complex kind of financial team, and this allows everybody to kind of scale up and save time, to be blunt.
Yeah. So this came about because we work in large organizations. I do a lot with very large multi-thousand company integrations and systems. And then I worked a lot with startups as well. But what I found is the biggest need was around that medium size. They're growing in complexity. So typically 100 to 500 people, maybe $50 to $100 million of revenue. They're just moving past the QuickBooks and the initial bookkeeping into a finance team of at least 5 people. And things are starting to get a little bit complicated, a little bit, I'm going to say chaotic, because what I found and gone through this in my own business is that you can't scale chaos. You need the system.
There's the quote. You might come up with a better one, but that's pretty good so far. I love a good. You can't scale chaos. Very true.
Which sounds obvious, but it's
still good to say it out loud. It's still powerful to say it out loud.
Exactly. And then what scales are systems. So systems scale. So I always like to say complexity fails, systems scale, because you need those systems in place to establish repeatable process to scale your business, because people cannot scale. You only have so many hours per day. If you try and push your people too hard, they will burn out. I know, I've been there myself. I've been there with my team. So what we learned is, coming out of COVID in early 21, 22, is we had to really break down the process, break down the business to say, okay, what's holding us back? What's that theory of constraints? The Goal book is an amazing book on how to address bottlenecks. And I was seeing that with accountants and CFOs in mid-sized companies. And we thought, okay, there's somewhere we can really help. And after some months of validation, it's turned out to be true.
I love it. From a technology perspective, and like what we talked a lot about in our first episode of like understanding it, simplifying it, creating it, is that also where you saw a lot of appetite, where the like financial people with financial background, skills, and training in that space, did they also have that? Damn, there's got to be a better way mindset, and we're willing to explore technology. There's that I'm in the chaos, but sometimes there isn't a willingness to that explore out or that trust that there is a better way. Did that also kind of make up what your kind of perfect persona of a customer would look like?
Yeah, totally. It's I'm a nerd. I'm a geek from IT. I've always been in systems and technology, and I see that a lot with accountants. They're studying the CPA. They're deep technical experts, and I was hearing repeatedly over and over again the frustration of I spend all my day updating spreadsheets and I didn't study the CPA. I didn't sign up for this.
I didn't sign up for this.
Exactly. So, and there is an element of you do need to do the work. There is the day job which you need to maintain, but then, okay, how are we strategically thinking, especially in this day and age of ChatGPT and AI, it's very easy to rely on systems and technology to do things for us. But how do we become more critical thinkers? How do we free up time for creativity and strategic thinking? And that's our whole goal. If by closing the books faster, we free up time of CFOs, controllers, and the team to spend their time in a much better way on things they love and the things that help the business move forward.
If I'm an individual in an organization where the closing the books, I'm doing a lot of the day-to-day, I'm doing the spreadsheets, and this is a broad question I think that gets asked all the time. Do I perceive this as a threat? Because some of us, if I free up my time, that level of critical thinking and like longer time span stuff isn't always been what I've been doing. And sometimes that can be a bit scary. Like, oh shit, I'm going to have all this free time. What do I do with it? And it's like, am I value anymore? I'm assuming in the early days of a transformation, which we're really just talking about change management, like the change side of being human, how much of that part of your job comes in of like, yeah, we're going to take some of these things off your plate. Whoa, wait a second. Does that put me in compromise at all? Or do we move past that pretty quickly?
Yeah, so this is I love that you brought this up, Tyler, because this is a really important point. A lot of companies, when they look to use AI or automation, they want to save time or grow the company. But what many companies don't do, what many leaders don't do, is the question of what are you going to do with that time saved?
Yeah.
Because to your point, if you don't allocate another role, another task, another strategic, apply strategic thinking to what you're going to do with that time, people do resist it. Because to your point, they're going to say, well, what, I'm going to free up my time, but then what? Am I automating myself out of a job? So the first thing that anyone should do around AI or automation or any technology or improvement is, what's the goal? What are you trying to achieve? And then what are you going to do with that time saving? How are you going to apply it?
When you get first brought into an organization, how inclusive is the conversation when it comes to including, I had Matt Farr on from TriMac, and he was very candid about their first foray into digital transformation failed because they went top down. They didn't actually, so everyone who was like, you didn't even ask me if I wanted this fixed. You didn't ask my opinion if I wanted XYZ thing automated. Yeah. And he said, then we went back to the drawing board, really brought the team in early, really had them go, wow, if I could just solve this one thing. And all of a sudden, as you can imagine, saying it out loud, buy-in went up. The problems getting solved were actually more relevant to the individuals on the quote unquote front lines doing the work. And a lot of it is in the office staff, the back office staff, who were just hammering away on the day-to-day. Top down didn't really work for them. I just always appreciated how honest he was about, we kind of got it wrong by breaking that cardinal rule of not including the people whose lives we're changing in the process.
And it's so important. And it's just to unpack that a little bit as well. So I'm going to quote my business coach, Dan Martell, who's an awesome entrepreneur and a Canadian entrepreneur, actually. And he's very big on helping your team fit into your goal. And what I mean by that is you as a leader have to paint a picture that's big enough for your team to fit in, because you want to create a vision of the future that's awesome, that's bigger than where we are now. and your team will want to fit into that, and you have to understand where their goals are. But by painting that future vision of growing the company, freeing up the time for more strategic work, and embracing new customers, that then brings the team along because they can fit into that future and how it fits for them personally.
Not so just we're gonna save time and money. That's not that inspiring of a vision. Is that what you're telling me?
Exactly. You need to do that to keep the company alive. But what does it mean to people? It doesn't. To your point, it doesn't mean anything. And the best way to do that is ask your team. It was interesting. We were working with a client, and one of the
be curious and ask them, John. Sounds like an old-fashioned solution. I know it does.
Because then there's the ladder of goals as well. And one of the goals that we were working with a client with was that the reward for achieving a certain revenue goal was that the company was going to do a week away in Mexico for the whole team. That was the reward if the team collectively hit the goal. Which the CEO at the time thought was amazing. We're going to go away to Mexico, all expenses paid vacation for the staff and their partners. But the staff, when you ask them, didn't really want that.
Yeah.
They were like, we love you guys, but we don't want to spend a week away with you. So we said, okay, well, what do you want? They said, we just want cash. We just want a bonus. So again, depends on the team, but it's worth just asking your team, okay, we're going to hit these goals. What would be a good reward? Which might be a day off, might be a pay for a visit to go and see your family, might be some training, might be a new laptop. Sometimes the laptops are slow.
Remove friction, allow me to make my life better, easier at work. I do love, and this is not what we're going to get into today, but that shift of what people value. And we're going to go out after work. And we're like, I don't want to go out after work. I want to go home with my family. Like, I think COVID has also landed for a lot of people what is important. And that, yes, work is important. And there's a line in between. And I've heard it for a lot of people during business development, taking people out for hockey games or taking them out and giving them tickets to everything. They're like, actually, thank you. But I don't have time. I'm going to go home and hang out with my kids. And I just appreciate, like, you got to ask people. You can't assume what they're going to find value in.
Yeah. And the first thing is just asking. To your point earlier around the TriMac example, is just asking your team, where are the bottlenecks? What's slowing you down? How can we speed up this process? And they will tell you. I mean, they'll tell you from their world point of view, but that's important feedback. And then you apply that to the bigger company goal of where do we need to go? And if it is cutting cost or increasing revenue or saving time, how do these goals fit into that? Because then everything you do, back to us and our company niching down on one client profile, it makes decision-making much easier. When you have that very clear goal, then you know everything you do is working towards that goal.
Which is proper goal structure. And it's, for what reason? And every idea can be a good idea until you have something to hold it up against.
Yes. And what I would say is you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems back to the process, because even if you have goals, that's awesome, but your systems will hold you back. And this is where chaos fails, because unless you have those clear systems to enable the goals, then you can't get there.
So many examples but hey, when you and I talked in 2021, we weren't really talking about AI to the level that it's being talked about today. From, being in technology, AI has been around since the 50s, and there's lots of great books of like, hey, let's talk about how we've just kept scaling and, why we've created this kind of critical mass. Or certainly ChatGPT had a big part in it, making kind of a household word. How has your world shifted now that AI has become this literally, dinner talk or breakfast or talk around the kitchen table and the accessibility of it? Assuming being a technologist, these are things that you were aware of along your journey, but they've reached this kind of fervor now, arms race, if you will. How's that impacting even the conversations you're having with leadership teams? Like, I've heard it said, like, hey, just tell us what we should pay attention to, but tell us what we should ignore. How much of your that dialogue is happening now with this onslaught of everywhere you turn, it's AI, AI, AI? AI.
Oh, yeah, all the time. I mean, it's interesting, actually, because I see a range of adoption with AI, from companies still limiting usage and still working out the AI policy, all the way through to companies embracing it and every person on the team has to learn about AI. So it's still a broad range. Generally speaking, I am seeing a less adoption. I mean, we work in the financial services, accounting space. Generally speaking, people are still not fully using it every day, but they are using it, I'd say, every week, or at least aware of it. And that's the first thing I do is when I'm asked by CEOs or boards to say, okay, what do we do with AI? The first thing is actually a model of 3 A's. So absorb, assemble, and align. So absorb is start to learn about AI, just becoming aware of it. Spend an hour a week, just even on YouTube, just watching some robots fall over. It's just understanding where AI is going and what people are using it for. Then the second A is assemble. So assemble the knowledge, assemble the team. That might be bringing in someone to do a lunch and learn on AI, might be assigning someone in your team to actually be the AI expert and AI champion. But you're assembling the team together to make sure that everyone's working together and sharing the AI for the company. And then you align. That's where you need to provide back to the goals, providing that direction. Okay, how are we going to use AI? How are people saving time? And then more importantly, what are you doing with that time saved? So as absorb, assemble, and align is a really simple way just to get started with AI and then build it into your company.
I'm imagining in the financial services space, and I say not even financial services, but all the tools that a financial professional would use. I'm also assuming that all those tools are now embedding AI into their kind of daily operations. Like I look at our team, and yes, we use things like Gemini because we're in the Google Suite and we use ChatGPT. But I look at Adobe. I look at even how Google helps me write my emails, and it's been doing that for years now. AI is also sneaking in everywhere. What's that balance between understanding even what the tools you have can do with AI, because those companies are probably integrating, versus a lot of us aren't going to build our own language models. We don't, like, that's not attainable. But there's so many tools that I find are showing up inside what my team already has from a tech stack perspective. How do you balance those two things of like, oh, we need ChatGPT, or hey, you know what, the tool we have that we're already paying for that's core to our business is bringing in AI features and we're probably not even using that effectively. Is that a dialogue, or am I kind of slicing that up too binary in my head?
No, that's a great way to start in terms of that absorb of the first A. Is I always advise start playing with the first level adoption is start playing with AI. Use ChatGPT, use Copilot, plan your kid's birthday party or a Thanksgiving dinner or whatever, or a vacation.
A low stakes, high reward situation.
Yeah. just use it, because as soon as you start to understand, okay, how it works, and AI and ChatGPT and Copilot is replacing the Google search. I don't know, even when you do Google search now, it does reply with an AI generated response. So it is becoming the new search, and a lot of people are relying on it because it is so powerful in terms of how it can respond, and learning how to prompt it, the prompt engineering in the right way is a skill that everyone should have. And I will give this little tidbit as well. It's 3 words that I use with every AI prompt that I use, which is act like a. So act like a CEO, act like a podcast expert. So depending on the question you're asking, you're priming the large language model, the AI, to act like an expert with 10 years experience in podcasting or whatever it is. And that sets the tone. So that's a really good way to start with the prompting.
I like that a lot. I was talking to someone yesterday because we were talking about the impact on search, and where Google has taught us to like keyword search and even long phrase match, but AI has taught us very much to be conversational, and actually very quickly you slip into a dialogue. Hey, I think this. What do you think? And you get into that. Which Google, you don't tend to use it that way. It's like, I want best places to travel in Italy versus I'm going to Italy with my family. I want these experiences. Like, it's interesting already how we as humans are changing the way we interact with it, which I think is exciting, interesting, and also potentially problematic. But let's not get too many. Let's not talk too clandestine about where AI could be taking as we trust it almost too much because it's friendly.
Yes, and that's what we to the point on the other side of your question earlier as well is start with ChatGPT or Copilot playing with just the prompting. On the flip side, in terms of how to really bring it into the company, I always advise start with the existing vendors, software that you have, because they all have AI to certain degrees. But where it's going is, and what we're testing out right now, is the conversational AI for financial analysis, financial planning, and analysis on forecasting. So, for example, if the large language model has all the balance sheet information, the accounting information from your company, you have conversations with it. So, hey, ChatGPT, about my balance in my company. What should we be looking out for with the contractor invoices? So it starts to highlight areas of vendor negotiation you can do. It looks to consolidate vendors and then say, hey, you might want to talk to these vendors because these 5 suppliers are providing these services and you could get a better price. and then it goes and searches what a typical price is for these services, or where are we, what are the level of accruals this month. Again, you're having that conversation rather than typing itself.
Which you just made a lot of CFOs nervous.
True, but what
I was like, Tyler, that's not my intention here.
No, but what I like to think is but this is what CFOs are asking for, because they don't want to spend time reading long reports. They need report. Don't get me wrong. The human is not replaced in any of these scenarios. I always like to say it's a human, AI, human. There's always a human interaction. You're still accountable for the results, even if you get it from AI. So, but what it empowers the CFO to do is to come up with new ways of thinking, things they perhaps wouldn't have thought of, to build on their existing expertise. And that's what makes them a better contributor and leader in their companies.
Well, and the speed and pace in which they're able to get to deeper level insights that can influence the business. It's actually mind blowing.
Yes, exactly. And if you're not doing it, someone else will be. So like I said, it's back to the absorb, assemble, align. Just start with absorbing, start with understanding what's going on. I self-confessed, I resisted ChatGPT when it first came out. Back in November 2022, I was like, this is weird. This is cheating. I can't use this. But now I use Manus, Perplexity, ChatGPT Copilot daily, and I bounce them off each other as well. I love saying, hey, Manus, this is the response from ChatGPT. How can you improve on it? What have I missed?
I love the what have I missed, or what questions. People are like, I don't even know what to ask it. Ask it what you forgot to ask it, and it'll give you suggestions. Yes. Like when you start really playing with it that way, and I like your comment of like, I have one set of browser windows that's literally just all the different platforms, and I'll play around and see who's better at what and why. But I do like the experimentation and giving yourself permission as just a human to experiment with it and play around. And I think that's not only permission, but it's critical.
Yeah, I see AI as your co-worker. It literally is someone. Eventually, we will see AI on your organization charts, because if John on the org chart, eventually I move on from a company, the AI bot of John and my knowledge with the company can remain. So future people can then talk to my role in the future, which is an AI bot, to then pull out that information and say, oh, hey, 5 years ago, John was working on this account and we need to get some up-to-date information. It's available on your fingertips now. You don't have to worry about trying to find it.
My mind is blown, and I love it. I play with this every day. I love that. Since we're being honest, I thought the internet was bullshit in 2018. I was wrong, John. So whenever new technology comes out, I get really curious and I embrace it and I learn and I try to understand whether I should pay attention or not, versus just coldly dismissing it. So that's my lessons learned from 2018 when, not even 2019. What am I talking about? 1998, because I moved here in 2000. That was the millennial. And I remember like right before I left, I left Montreal to move to here. So felt like moving to a different country, not to the same degree of any scope that you did, but Quebec and Alberta, very, very different environments. I've clearly fell in love with the Alberta environment very quickly and never looked back. But yeah, I think it was 97, 98. I was like, this internet, it's a fad.
Yeah.
Completely ridiculous in hindsight, but I like to say it out loud.
It's not ridiculous actually, because every human, think about human evolution. So our brains, and I've done a lot of study on this. I do a lot of work in personal development. How do we achieve bigger goals and dreams? And the human brain is wired to resist change, because change means new. And back to caveman days and cave people days, if we did something new, we could die. You know what I mean? If you ventured into that forest and there was a saber-toothed tiger or whatever there, that's death. Now, those
of us who didn't make it, so those genes didn't get passed on, right?
Exactly. That's the point. So our human brains are wired to say, let's keep this safe, let's keep this normal and the same, because we know that works. We're safe now. Why would you do anything different? But in this day and age, fortunately, we don't have tigers outside our door, so we can take some more risks. But going through that change cycle, and it's different for everyone and different in the situation. Moving from Montreal to Calgary may have been a bigger change, like it was from UK to Canada for us, than say, hey, I'm going to go out and speak to a new person. But it's recognizing you're going to go through that resistance and then coming out of it, because the end result will always be better. The chances are, whatever change you're going through, the end result will be better. And that's what should drive everyone forward. So I'm going to get through this change. I'm going to move through this resistance.
When, in your experience being brought in from the outside, being brought in as the expert consultant with you and your team, can you almost map that out with organization? You have that first couple conversations with them and you're like, okay, I see where you've played around with it, or that you're very resistant, but the leader's pushing it. Is there kind of a 3 months, 6 months? I know that I'm asking for a formulaic answer to something that is going to be unique to a team, but I imagine you see patterns.
Oh, totally. And the size of the team, the tone of the company will change. And that's why I love working with clients and CFOs on this, because every project is unique. Every project is different. And what I love doing is seeing the journey of people going through that change, because everyone's a bit sort of, what is this? Why are we doing this? And some people get on the board straight away. I always have a 20-20-60 rule. So 20% of the people will love it. Can't wait. Let's go. I'm on board. 20% will just hate it, resist it, never want to do it. And then that middle 60% will be like, yeah, I'm okay. Let me know what I need to do. I'm doing my day job. The point is, the 20% resistors, don't focus there. I mean, they're doing their job. Just leave them be. Yeah. The 60%, they're the people you can influence. So use the 20% of let's go to then show what the art of the possible is. And then suddenly, over time, those 60% will start to drift into the other 20%. And that will move the change forward.
Mm-hmm. It's no different than if you're influencing hearts and minds or even driving a campaign. Your complete detractors, just let them. That's okay. You can let them be. Who's in the middle? They're like, I don't know. I'm okay, but I'm also open. I'm curious, which is one of my favorite things. I'm curious, and therefore new information will allow me to move in a different direction versus I'm trying to shoot holes in everything I hear. That's a harder. But sometimes we get trapped into focusing on them because they often can be louder voices in the room.
Yeah, and it can be tough. I mean, there's a lot. The one message I would say is repetition. It's a case of repeating the message over and over again, and maybe for different audiences in different settings. So as a CEO, it could be a combination of an email newsletter, a fireside chat, a town hall presentation, the webinar. It's a lot of repetition about this is why we're doing it, and it's important for the company and us. You will benefit from this, and this is how, and that might be some individual messages. But then driving that change is just the leader's job, is again creating that future that's big enough for everyone to fit into.
I really like that. I had a politician tell me once, said, Tyler, when your constituents get annoyed with your message, that's the only time you know they've actually heard you. I was like, well, that's a weird filter, but I appreciate the dialogue in which she was, and this was someone who'd been in politics for 20 years. And she just said it as one of those like hard-earned lessons. I was like, I will repeat this. I like this.
Yes, it's true. Embrace the hater. Like in social media, we're all involved there. Just embrace the haters. I mean, you can't change their opinion, but the fact that it
lets you know that the message is getting out there. Absolutely.
Exactly.
So financial services, obviously privacy. And I don't care what part of the organization you're in, privacy, your data, your information. How much is that part of that conversation coming into the organization? Like, okay, before we just jump on XYZ platform, you mentioned AI, secure use policies and all those things. How much is that a factor? Or is it typically, well, most of these companies are already working with Microsoft, so they've got their own environments. How much is that a factor right off the bat? And I just want to be respectful. And I think most of us know now, hey, if you put it in there, it's public domain, but I still hear about people going, I kind of screwed up. I got so comfortable. I caught myself putting in information and realizing that I shouldn't have. How much is that a factor? Because we're still on this curve for so many people where it's still net new.
Yeah, it is. And you nailed it, Tyler, in terms of consider everything on the internet public, and the public ChatGPTs, the public Copilots, the Claude, Perplexities, Manus. Just assume, even though they promise not to share data, just assume that it could get out there.
I don't believe them, John.
Exactly. So, and that's a healthy caution that everyone should have to make sure that you don't put out information that's going to be bad and come back to you and personal. So, but on the flip side, there's also the convenience. So I have used ChatGPT for personal information. So for example, we had a rental property in the UK. We had to do a tax return for the UK property income. So that involved a lot of currency conversions because we were incurring costs in the UK pounds on our credit card statement in Canada. It was a nightmare to get all that together. So we did use ChatGPT to pull out all the expenses that it thought were expenses on a credit card statement and then convert them to Canadian dollars.
Yeah.
So as a result, I was uploading credit card information to ChatGPT. But what I did is I asked, to your point earlier in the conversation, I asked ChatGPT, how do I upload information that cannot be shared and cannot be personal? So it guided me through how to redact certain information on the credit card statement so it couldn't be personal, it couldn't be seen as personal. I then did that, uploaded it. I then said, can you find any personal information on the credit card statement? I just did a statement, a part of it. And it said, yes, I can. And I said, okay, even though you told me this, you can still sign. And then, so what do I need to do? And then it gave me another set of instructions. And then I did it again. Said, can you find anything? It said, no. I am trusting it. And at the end of the conversation, I said, please delete all the conversation that we had. But the convenience outweighed the risk of the privacy. So I wouldn't upload my social insurance number, but there's some information financially, and I wouldn't upload my credit card number, but some financial information I might upload because the time saved was huge.
That's interesting. What I really loved about that story most of all was how much you collaborated with the platform. Yeah. And I think that I've surrounded people often that are using it or just getting onto it. They're still kind of using it like a search engine, where you really just illustrated an example where you actually created it as a thinking partner.
Yes.
You know, I've heard it, treat it like the intern that's beyond enthusiastic, but you got to guide it in the right direction. And wow, it can do amazing things for you. And my team has started adopting some of that. Some of the ones that are some of the individuals that are a little bit slower. And they're like, oh yeah, it's just an intern that really wants to help me, but I got to really be clear with it and be there for it. And I've seen an uptick in usage from that perspective, or them coming back to me going, wow, I had this cool thing happen. And then they're telling like successful AI collaboration stories.
Yeah. And I get a lot of resistance around it's wrong. It will make mistakes and they highlight the problems with AI and true, it will, but so do people. And I always come back with 50% automated is still 100% awesome, because it's saved 50% of your time. It won't be perfect first time, but it's still saving you time.
That level of critical thinking, that level of looking at it and going, or sometimes I question, or I feel like individual like yourself, many, many years of experience, you can get a piece of data or feedback or information from the system and go, you know what? That's about 70% correct. I sometimes find myself concerned if I'm in my early 20s, and I'm only speaking from just years of experience, nothing against old or young, doesn't matter to me. And I don't have that discerning eye, the critical thinking, I call it critical thinking, but just the years of experience to identify the maybe 20% or even 5% that was wrong. What's your thoughts on where we're going from that perspective, as you're taking a hard-earned, life journey of this, being in this industry, being a self-professed, geek, and going, I love this, and I can pick out the faults, or I certainly can maybe be more discerning, versus somebody, the tendency to maybe trust it only because you just don't have enough experience to question it in the right places.
Yeah, it's all about that collaboration, conversation, and asking the right questions. So when we start with a company working through their financial close process, the first thing we do, they'll say we want AI. They'll say we want automation. So that's cool. Let's go through the problems, because a bad process automated is still a bad process. So the first thing to do is streamline the process. So back to your question around the critical thinking is, let's look at the process, let's look at the steps, let's just map it out manually, just write it out with your team. That, by the way, gets engagement with your team because they're involved in the problem solving. And then we set a goal. So if we want to reduce the month-end close from 15 days down to 11 days, or halve the time, then that's the goal. What's going to take time out of this process? And that's the first step, is the bottleneck finder, which, by the way, it reminds me, actually, if your audience wanted a copy of our bottleneck finder, they can just DM me on LinkedIn bottleneck, and I'll send it to them. There's no sign up, there's no email, but if you just DM bottleneck to me, I'll send you the full PDF. And you can take that and work with it. And that really helps with that first. It
forces you to start with the process, which I love. And coming back to, like, first have to analyze what we're doing and how we're doing it, which again gets everyone around the table.
Yes.
From more experience to I'm just putting in these numbers every day. Now maybe I see how it contributes to the bigger picture as well.
Yeah, exactly. And then the second step is, that's when we get into automation, the AI, and the quick wins, because we want to. You'll see things out of that first process review very quickly. Oh, why are we doing this review? I was working with a client a couple of years ago, and they do working papers for the financial close, which are all the contributed to the statements. And they produced this working paper on a tax, IFRS tax standard. And they realized they asked, why are we still doing this? And they realized that the actual standard was no longer needed. It had actually been removed 2 years ago, but they were still producing it every year, even though they didn't need it. So again, it's just that quick sense check to say, oh, hey, do we still need to do this? Why are we doing this? What's slowing us down?
So really what I'm hearing is also that discipline of really understanding your process. And then that creates the opportunity to then automate using a myriad of technologies.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And we actually have a framework, the RAPID framework, the RAPID. So reason is at the first, when you have the reason, the bottlenecks, then you have the automation. Then P is people, because you need to bring people along through training, coaching, guidance. Then I is the impact, so giving the metrics to make sure you record the success we've got, followed by D, which is the deliver, the ongoing sustainment. How do you move this forward for the next 5-10 years? Because what you automate now will not be what you automate later.
If you're just thinking about the word innovation gets thrown around a lot these days, and I was at a talk recently, and she shared, the woman who was speaking, Tina Mathis, her name, really shared it's really easy to mistake process improvement using technology and innovation as the same thing, but they're very different. And a lot of companies, innovation can be very tricky, and it takes a very certain discipline and a certain mindset. But process improvement, she argued in her presentation, which I quite liked, was actually maybe 80% of the time what we're actually after. Sounds, when I'm hearing you talk, we're not really innovating or changing the world. We're just going in and we're really understanding our process, and we're using automation and efficiency to smooth out maybe things, to your point of your example, that we've been doing that we've kind of forgot even why we were doing them.
Yeah, I agree. And innovation does mean different things to different people, but at the end of the day, it's about making life better. It's about solving a problem. And that could be literally, like I said, not doing that working paper for that financial close process, or it could be launching a whole new service line, like an oil and gas company suddenly going into wind farms and solar energy. So there's levels of innovation that could be huge or could be small, but most teams that we work with, you need to start somewhere, and just doing those small little incremental changes, and more importantly, recording them, noting the wins, and then saying, okay, we saved this time. What are we now doing with it? Because then you build up a catalog of here's everything we've done for innovation, which then builds momentum for bigger innovation.
Are accounting teams inherently good at that because of the nature of their DNAs to start with?
Yes and no.
Okay, yes and no.
So yes, in terms of what I love about accounting, which is why I go back to the systems, is that accountants and tech nerds like myself, we're very good at a process, a system, but we also get blinkered. We all get habitual and focused on this is the way we do things. So innovation is a process, because you need to look at what it is and then improve on it and then apply that improvement to a way of working. So most accountants are good at it because they go back to the data, because they record the baseline, say here's what our measure of financials right now, and then here's our measure of financials in the future after our improvement, and then you can measure that incremental improvement, and that contributes to the bigger innovation change.
I appreciate that. What's your DNA and what are you used to? In the organizations you work with, I like what you said, the leader has to create a vision big enough that people can see themselves kind of coming up and being part of it. In your specific role with the companies you work with, is the CFO the champion? Who reaches out to you? I'm thinking about bringing these things into organizations. They all sound great around the boardroom, but then a week later, who's doing what to make it happen? What does that look like in the organizations? Is it typically, the senior leadership will give it a green light, and is it a CFO, or is it who takes the ball and run with it in your experience?
It's both, actually. So sometimes it could be a finance director or even a controller who has an idea and then wants to sell that up to the CFO. Sometimes it's a CFO saying, hey, my team is burnt out. I'm not getting the numbers I need. I need a better
way.
Yeah, exactly. So it's either top down or bottom up. Either way, it needs both, because you can't do one without the other. So if it's top down, the team below needs to be bought into that change. If it's bottom up, the leadership needs to be bought into the change that they're asking for. So it's a first conversation around a problem. I actually just posted on LinkedIn this morning around a CFO survey I did around what are the top 5 things slowing you down. Yeah. And it's not about where's the new technology. It's around we're spending too much time on the process of accruals or reconciliations or just getting invoices paid on time to improve cash flow. So these are fairly manual processes now, but that's when you can apply the innovation, the AI, once you know how to make the improvement.
What I like about those is they're all direct line of sight to a positive impact on the business too. Like
Yes.
you don't have, it's not, you don't have to interpret it or you don't have to hallucinate. You're like, if we solve this problem, this will happen, which I find gets a lot more motivation to move things forward.
Yes, as we always like to say, so revenue is for vanity because you claim that revenue number. The profit is for sanity because you need to make profit. But cash flow is for vitality because you need that cash flow to sustain the business. If you have the most profitable, the most revenue, that's awesome. But if your cash flow is broken, your company will fail.
Yeah, that's when looking at the wrong number can really hurt you as a leader or as someone in that position. When you think of the future, obviously someone who's been in it for as long as you have and self-professed geek, which I love in this context, geeks are taking over the world in a good way. What gets you the most excited? Agentic AI, just the evolution of the models. Where does this arms race net out that's happening out there in the AI world? And that's a really broad statement. But how does that translate back into what you're like, okay, like 6 months from now, I kind of see where we're going. I don't want to get much farther than 6 months or a year because I don't know, my crystal ball isn't that clear. What gets you excited from a technology perspective that you see really having potential impact, specifically on your customers?
Yeah, so personally, I'm really looking forward to the day when a cell phone is no longer needed or a smartphone is no longer needed because it's either vision. It's probably I think you'll go the way of the glasses. Yeah. Exactly, because
that idea just won't go away, right? It kind of comes and it goes away and then it comes back again.
Yeah, and it's going to take a shift because A, the technology needs to improve, and B, people need to be comfortable wearing glasses even if they don't. But there's some sort of much smaller, easier to wearable technology that's going to happen, and that will just give us much more access to the information we need. And then that's that collaboration with AI. So in the glasses example, we're seeing AI augment what we're seeing, and it's helping us. So that I'm excited for new technology that way. I'm also a little bit cautious because I was just reading a study the other day around how AI is also making us think in a different way because we jump to the AI response as opposed to actually thinking it through. Yeah. So yes, we're accountable for the result, and we're saying, here's what I think on this AI response, but we're taking that cognitive thinking out of the process a bit. And so what I'm also excited about is, okay, how can I improve my thinking and also have my team think creatively about how we use AI and not just rely on it?
I was somewhere the other day, and it's the old joke people used. I remember when we just used to not know something, we could just debate and who had the better argument would win. But now someone goes, well, Google says. I was somewhere and someone asked me something just a little bit on the fringe. I'm like, I'm not really sure. And my immediate thought, which I caught myself, was like, oh, I'd love to riff on this with AI and then get back to you. I was like, but I was out and about. I was somewhere. It didn't make sense to do that. But that was where my brain jumped right away. I kind of caught it and went, that's interesting. Be aware of that. Note to self, and then move on.
Yeah, it is insane about how fast it's going. I was watching an interesting video the other day on YouTube and the AI and how it's actually doubling in computing power and effectively IQ every 6 months. It's just the rate of change is just insane right now. We also have to remember that right now it is relying on internet data. It's relying on published data that it has access to. Yeah. Because to your point around debate and human interaction, when that happens, we're not pulling on the internet. We're not pulling on your Facebook reels to just make a decision. But right now, the AI is doing that. However, in future, it's starting to extrapolate. That's when we move from artificial intelligence to artificial general intelligence, where it's starting to make assumptions and more theoretical ideas based on how humans interact. That's the very exciting and also scary part where we just don't know what's going to happen in the future.
And then if super intelligence comes after that, and I've heard... Yoshua Bengio spoke at an event I was at in Montreal. He was the head of what's the Montreal Institute? What was why am I drawing a blank? What was the Montreal AI Institute and better the University of Montreal? I can't remember, but he came out and actually did almost like a Skynet kind of conversation. He's like, I was part of this. He got the Turing Award last year for his work in AI, like, so high caliber, not just there's conspiracy theorists and that's one thing, but when someone who's been like a father of kind of the AI journey come out and say, we have some things we need to worry about. And he kind of went on that journey from general intelligence to super, and it got super dark. It was really interesting, but the source that was saying it made it even more scary. Because this isn't, my father-in-law telling me that the world is flat and we're all going to die. It was this gentleman who had spent his time in the world of AI and been a thought leader in AI at kind of the top level of that game, really voicing his concerns about the future of humanity. It was really a scary moment. And it was interesting. I've been pondering it ever since, clearly, as it popped into my mind when you said that. But just not really knowing what the future is, and no different than when we develop nuclear technology, we can benefit the world, but we can also destroy ourselves. Yeah. Where does AI play into that journey? It sounds very familiar to the conversations that happened after, the nuclear bomb was developed. If you want to get into that kind of the Cold War history and what happened globally, that arms race, AI seems a lot very similar at this time.
Yeah. I like to think that AI will realize that the best collaborations are with humans, because humans invented AI, and my head goes to, well, if there was a future where AI got rid of humans for whatever reason, what is that future? I mean, what is the purpose? I mean, totally. You know what I mean? We can only imagine a future with people because we need that's the human evolution. So I do like to think on the positive. Yes, there will be bad situations. Yeah. There will be mistakes.
It was a fun conversation to entertain for sure. I tend to like to see the world positively also.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Who knows? I mean, right now
it's a curiosity, and well, that's an interesting theory. But again, it's just a prognosis or someone prophesizing a potential future.
Yes, exactly. And again, it's thinking about that can get scary and unnerving, which is why I was bring it back to, okay, how can this help teams right now just get home to see their kids at 6 o'clock in the evening? It's, you know what I mean? Let's just look at what we can do to improve our day jobs right now so that it helps us in future and frees up time.
And by leaders and influencers, how do we set that stage? By having those right conversations as a start.
Yes, exactly. And just knowing it's happening. So that's back to those 3 A's of just absorb right now, just look at what's going on so you can be aware, and then have conversation when the board asks you what's our AI strategy or how you're using AI, that you can respond, even if it's just we're investigating options.
And are you getting calls because people are like, hey, the board asked me this, maybe just simply that question, no more depth, just like, what are we doing and how are we as an organization embracing AI? And then all of a sudden, have you ever got the panic phone call?
Not the panic phone call, but the more we need to respond to it's interesting. The board said we need to do AI, and that was it. ... Yeah, exactly.
I've heard a lot of that. Sure,
everyone else is doing AI. We need to do AI. Go, and it's okay. So then it's coming back.
What do you mean by do AI?
Yeah, exactly. So then that's the thing. But we also need to report the profit, manage the cash flow, get our invoices paid on time. You know what I mean? There's the day job to manage. So it's not so. I haven't really had the panic call, but because the panic call typically happens with a problem in the financial statements, as in the AI is not working in the right way, and that's when we need to all hands on deck to make sure it's doing the right thing. But this is and then help fix it. The big thing there is around, okay, how do we quickly respond, say we're working on it, and then come up with a strategy? And it starts with just allowing people to use it. Back to your question earlier around privacy, the enclosed co-pilots or the Microsoft co-pilots or the AIs within your corporate licenses typically are enclosed. You're not sharing the data onto the internet. And that's the difference, is then you can upload confidential company information within your own company tenant because it is closed and contained. But again, let's check the fine print, folks. Have your legal team review the contracts with any company that's using AI just to make sure, they're not training their models on your confidential information, because that's an advantage to them, which they're benefiting from. And secondly, they are truly keeping the data locally and typically within Canada as well.
Yeah, where's your server? Where is that infrastructure based, right? And I know some of our large enterprise clients, that's become part in the last couple of years. Part of that security, that cybersecurity, data sheet that we fill out is, where is the data being stored? Where are your servers? And do you know where they are? You made a comment. I'm just curious about oh, there's something wrong in the system now, or AI is maybe hallucinating something, and we've kind of figured that out. How do we then back engineer? So if I take someone that you've been working with for a couple of years, are you starting to see that as well, where it's like, oh, we've got a bunch of AI, we've got AI implemented into our process, and I think we're getting some hallucinations. Are you seeing that as well? Like, is there always a tuning and always do you always have to keep a fine eye on it, even once you've got it, quote unquote, implemented?
Definitely. And that goes back to the implementation strategy around the testing. I mean, that's not changed. Yeah. So when we did IT projects back in the late 90s, you still have that test phase. So the test implementation of AI so for example, if it's reconciling invoices, and then at some point we can get it to automatically pay vendors within the approval limits, we need to make sure it's tested to say, okay, given these checkpoints and these guidelines, are you paying the right vendor in the right way with the right amount of money? And yeah, you have to go through that testing. There's always that. Right now, there's still anything financial that goes out of your bank account always has to have a human, always has to have that personal.
Well, I like how you said AI, human AI. Like I liked how you just laid that the human in the loop kind of process, but being very literal of like, this isn't about taking the humans out of it. It's about elevating the human and using the technology where it's best suited as a tool.
Yeah, exactly. And then sense checking the results as well. When we're doing a financial analysis on financial statements and doing the forecasting with AI support, we're then bouncing that off other people, saying, here's what we're finding. Does this make sense? And more importantly, what are we missing? Because AI might be taking the company in a direction of analysis that doesn't fit. So back in the early 2000s, when I did a first AI automation to just automate life insurance quotes, which is easy now, but back in the 2000s, that was fairly groundbreaking. That actually didn't work for the company because it was known as the friendly society. They wanted to have the customer interaction. So we were actually improving revenue by 13%, but customer satisfaction, the MPI score, was actually coming down. So as a result, they canceled the project, which was a huge blow to my ego. But what I learned was that you have to use AI in the right way. And as a result, we actually the life insurance company didn't use it for quotes. They actually licensed that technology to another life insurance company who did focus on just getting the quotes out the door. So it's just understanding what options are and aligning it to the overall company goals and culture.
I love that comment you made, because that's really your brand, your values, what you stand for, and does it fit or doesn't fit. And it was a perfect fit for someone else who had a different brand promise.
Yes.
I really like that. And oftentimes I think that feels more esoteric, but it's, if we want to be easy to work with and this isn't perceived that way, then we're damaging our customers. Where the other company was like, hey, never want to talk to a human. We're the insurance company for you. Like, I love it. And they were both right, because they were living their truth from how they positioned themselves with their customers.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's another layer that I think needs to get added on top of everything that we're talking about here.
Yeah. And back to the innovation comment earlier, when sometimes finance teams are creating an AI agent to do some analysis on the time recording and project cost accruals or whatever, that sometimes is helpful to the HR team to say, okay, we've done this analysis on the financials, but by the way, we've also just done a load of analysis on timesheets and hours worked and vacations. That's useful for the HR team to say, okay, are we working our staff too hard?
We're trending in this direction or not, or so far and so forth.
So that's where, even though in the example I had, it was selling it to another company, finance can share that information with another department, and that ultimately improves the whole team.
And really being able to look at it out at the silo and kind of broader how that having access to that information and the insights that goes with it can ultimately improve everyone across the board.
Yes, exactly that.
John, I'm with you. I'm very optimistic and very excited about this. And as I did way back in 21, I like your perspective. I like the way you think about things. I love your 3-point models that you have to explain things. I think it takes something that can be a bit overwhelming. Okay, let's break it down, and it always starts with step 1, step 2, step 3, which I really value the way that you guys approach that. And I do appreciate from a marketing perspective, the way you've niched down and you've really focused on where you can add the most value and to whom. And I think as businesses, sometimes when we can add a lot of value, the discipline of saying, but who can we add the most to, can be really challenging, especially for smaller businesses.
Yeah. And it starts with feedback. Again, we niche down on the financial close automation and AI after a lot of feedback. So we reached out to at least 30 CFOs and controllers saying, hey, we're thinking of developing this product, but what problems are you seeing? So this did not start with financial close. This started with very different solution offering, which we've now seeing that problem and that need in the market, that's where we're focused.
I love that. I've heard this from many startup founders that have gotten it wrong and then told me this was their new version. Don't fall in love with the problem, fall in love with your customer's version of the problem.
Right.
And I think there's a lot to be said for that. I've had many lessons learned going, you know what? I fell in love with a problem, but it was my version of the problem,
Yes.
not theirs. And you win a contract, but then your tech doesn't get utilized because you never built it for the people that were actually trying to climb their mountain.
Yes. And also I'm building on that as well. We often talk about the 10,000 hours to be an expert, but it's actually, more importantly, it's 10,000 iterations, because if you just spend 10,000 hours doing the work and not improving, you're not making a difference. So it's almost 10,000 iterations. You need to improve, even if it's just 1% every time, just do it a little bit better.
I like 10,000 iterations a lot better. John, you are the king of quotable quotes, my friend. I love it.
Thank you.
I got bumper stickers and t-shirts and coffee cups with all the stuff you said today. It was fabulous. I'm looking forward to when your swag comes out. I'll buy it. You've got lots of things that, for me, that makes it so much easier for them to share with other people and to kind of take your message further. So thanks for that. I really enjoy that.
No, for sure. I love it. It helps me, again, back to the system scale. It's the quotes and the acronyms and the frameworks. I love that. And then it's making it real with the teams because they can remember it and follow it.
100%. John, what's the best way for someone to get a hold of you? I know you're on LinkedIn quite a bit. You put out some great content. What's your preferred?
Yeah, for sure. LinkedIn. I love sharing value with folks there. So reach out on LinkedIn. Always appreciate a like and a comment. And like I said, if you want a copy of that bottleneck finder for
that's awesome.
Improving your financial close process, just DM bottleneck in LinkedIn. I'll send you a copy straight away.
I am doing it as we speak, Sean, right now. I'm going to do it as soon as I get bottleneck. You'll see me as in your DM. It's like right at the top of the list. But John, Thanks so much for coming on today. It was really good to reconnect.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. It was a pleasure.